So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of Studio Life. Some of the more avid fans of ours will be aware that we had a new concept of coming and visiting studios of producers and engineers that we know, and we are very, very fortunate that the first episode of this that we're gonna shoot is with a legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rick Wilde.
Well, hello. Can I say it's an honour for me to be on this show because I watch all your shows, and I've got to say that you two have cost me a fucking fortune in fucking plugins, because every time you talk about a plugin, you never say it's shit. You always say it's really good, so I then have to go and buy it, and it costs me a fortune. So
we do have the odd shit one.
We do the odd shit.
The odd shit one.
Well,
not many.
Not many.
Not enough, really. I wish there were more.
Yeah.
More
well, what's the
ones.
point of reviewing shit plugins? That's the.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's an extended version, and we're gonna be talking a bit about Rick's studio setup and a bit of his journey through, well, synthesizers, writing, and production. And so let's kick off, Rick. You started obviously as a younger chap, younger than you are today.
I was very young.
Yeah. So what was what inspired you to get into, well, writing music and then producing music?
I think growing up with my father, who is a songwriter, and I saw how he kind of worked and all the different people that he was working with and writing for. It was that really inspired me. I think seeing that it could be done. You can actually write a song and have it played by someone else or recovered by someone else. So once I saw that it could be done, then I had a little bit.
You started doing it.
Yeah, I started doing it. I thought I could do that, and so I taught myself guitar as a kid, and I'd had piano lessons growing up. So. Music was in me, and I found it quite easy to pick out tunes and melodies. And if I heard a song in my head or on the radio and I knew it in my head, I'd be able to play it on guitar and piano immediately. So it wasn't a hard process for me. If I was inspired by an artist, I could listen to their melodies, and it would be quite easy for me to like play similar chords and come up with similar melodies. And so, once I was inspired, it wasn't a hard process. So I knew it's something I could do.
Who was it back in the day? Who were you listening to before you were like making tunes of your own? Who were your inspirations?
Well, I was like growing up with like David Bowie and Queen and. Wow. Yeah, but I also, I was a bit of a rocker as well. I loved Sweet back in the 70s, and Gary Glitter, of course. I know it's a bit of a dirty word these days, but no, all that stuff, all the audience participation stuff, and I loved all that. Elton John was a big influence. ABBA, all the melodies and all these lovely harmonies from ABBA and Queen as well. They were a big influence on my stuff.
And when you first started writing songs, obviously you started quite young. Was there a sound in your head you were going for, or were you just trying to sound like everyone else at the time, or did you want to be different? What was your sort of thoughts in your head at that time?
Yeah, I kind of had a sound in my head that I wanted it to sound like.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that we didn't have like sequencers and drum machines and stuff like that when I first started recording, like Kids in America that had live drums on. I think had there been drum machines in those days, it would have been on a drum machine, because I'm a bit of a control freak, and obviously I played everything on Kids and pretty much on that first album and second album. In fact, all the albums, but because I'm a bit of a control freak anyway.
Nothing's changed there.
But things like programming. Actually, Cambodia was that's when we've started introducing drum machines and stuff, and that for me was an absolute godsend, because it meant that I had 100% control over the track, rather than couldn't play the drums and stuff. So I'm not a drummer.
I want to stop you a little there. So when did the transition come? You were saying you taught yourself to play sort of guitar and you learned to play piano. When did you discover synthesizers? And obviously the Kids in America was a defining tune in terms of synthesizers. What when did you discover synthesizers, and what changed you from the guitar and the piano to synthesis?
Well, I'd already done a couple of demos in a studio in Luton called Quest Studios, and I had this really small little synth called a Wasp, and the Wasp synth just had all these little kind of sounds and noises that just interested me, and I was a big Gary Newman fan at the time as well, so I loved all the synthy sounds that Gary was coming up with. So I went into that studio, did some demos, and then we got a record deal with Rack. But then I asked Kim to come in and do backing vocals. Mickey Most, who owned Rack Studios, saw Kim and then realised that she could be a star. It wasn't really I didn't have any aspirations of being an artist. I just wanted to write and record. So that it just seemed like it was a perfect opportunity for me to actually be doing what I really wanted to be doing for an artist like Kim, who's brilliant at everything. She's a great artist, a great performer, a great vocalist, just a 100% star in every avenue. And I thought, well, this just works so well for me. So then I booked in another studio in Hertford called The Lodge, which is owned by a band called the Enid. And the Enid were like a prog rock band. And Robert Godfrey, who was the lead guy and keyboard player, had an array of synths. Obviously the Mini Moog there was a Mini Moog there was a Selena there was Yamaha synths. Wow. And it's just like an array of all these amazing sounding synths. And so I was like a kid in a sweet shop, and that was it. I was off, and that's where Kids in America was recorded. And yeah, that kind of like the moment I saw all those synths, that was it. I was hooked.
So there was a thing, wasn't there? So when Kids in America came out, that synth pulse, which famously you got from the Wasp, which I think you've got fixed.
No,
again.
Actually, it was written on the Wasp because I had like an LFO setting. So because you only had like the one little touch keyboard, bit like stylophone, but with your fingers, and so you press it and you could program it different speeds, and you could have it in fifths. So a fifth, you can play a minor or a major chord in your head. So I was like hearing different chords and stuff in my head while I was writing. So that is as a writing tool, and it's tiny as well, so you could take it anywhere.
So that wasn't a step sequence.
No, it's all played live. Everything was all live. So
it's mad.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of seat your pants.
It
was a bit seat your pants. But but when we came to record the actual thing, that was played on the Moog, on the Mini Moog.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Using the LFO, and then the bass pulse was the first thing that was laid down, and Chris North, the drummer, he would have that really loud and clicky in his earphones, and he played drums along to that amazingly.
Wow!
And so that's what he was using as a click, was the bass pulse. I mean, amazing.
That's so old school. Yeah. So did you know then though that mixing guitars with synths in that way, I mean, obviously it's a massive part of the new wave sound, but also has become a real thing now, which bands still struggle to do well. There are bands every now and again that can mix the synth thing with the rock thing, but that was probably the first big hit that properly nailed it. Did you know at the time it was a pioneering thing to do?
No, I didn't. I honestly didn't. I didn't feel it was pioneering because I think Gary Newman. I always say Gary was like the forerunner of that because he would have like a bit of guitar and
true enough,
and he had those bass synths and stuff and those lovely mad screamy synths which I loved. So I was trying to sound a bit like him, really. Yeah. So I would say that he was a forerunner. I wouldn't call me a forerunner.
Well,
fair enough.
Some of us would. So, I mean, what was when you? So, take us through. You're in the studio and you're working on that first album on Kids, and you've mentioned the Enid and the Lodge studio. To take us through a sort of typical day when you're in there, sort of writing and recording and putting these things together. With what you're obviously being extremely creative, working with these newfangled machines, and have you got engineers in there and working the console and stuff, and do you turn up with completed songs lyrically, chord wise, structure wise, or is it a complete creative process in the studio?
originally on the first album, it would be me and Dad pretty much coming up with the song written on the on the Wasp. Dad wouldn't have the lyrics ready. So then we would come up with nail the melody, and that would be like the most important part of it. Then we would book the lodge, go into the lodge, and I would probably kick off with a mini moog playing the bass and maybe put a few guitars on, and then the drummer Chris North would come in and do the drums that we need. And whilst the song was being recorded, Dad would be sitting at the end of the desk with his pad, and he'd be like trying to come up with ideas for lyrics and stuff, and then he would now and again bounce off lyric ideas to me, and we'd talk about it, and then I would go back to recording more and more stuff, and the more stuff that went on, the more inspired Dad would be. And sometimes, like Kids, that the backing track kind of inspired the lyric. Yeah,
Amazing.
It is amazing. So I'm just thinking, excuse me, that was probably too early for 24 track, wasn't it? This must have been maybe 16 or even 8 track.
No, it was 24.
It was 24.
Yeah,
It must have been a really early one.
Yeah, it was a very high spec studio. I mean, the Enid it was an amazing place. It was tiny. It was in a basement, but it had the gear that they had was phenomenal. I think they even had a studio as well. Yeah,
I've got a little fact here actually, because Robert Godfrey then moved to Northampton.
Okay.
Which is where I'm from, and moved the Lodge studio into Northampton.
Oh, no way.
And I've recorded in the Lodge
I never
through
knew
the
that.
console that you recorded Kids
Oh,
in America
really?
through.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
I
amazing.
recorded a demo when I was 16 or 17
bizarre.
through that
Amazing.
console, yeah.
What was the console? Can you remember?
No, that was before
I
my
don't
days of understanding console. Do you know what it was?
I mean, back then it would have...
DDA or something like that?
So you obviously then moved forward as following the success of your first album with Kim, your sister. You then developed your own setup. Is that right?
No. So the first album was all done at the Lodge, with this vast array of synths. So every time I went in, I never knew what was going to be coming out of these things, and I'd be going to different presets and different sounds and mucking about with them and doing my thing. And then it came to the second album, and by this time we'd had a lot of success, and we'd signed to Rack Records. Kim was signed as an artist, and obviously with the success of Kids, Mickey said, right, you better go in and do the album. So that, and things were happening, and it was all working. But then Mickey said, I want all the recordings to be at Rack Studios, and Rack is a stunning studio, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have the array of synths that I'd been used to. So it was so I went out and bought myself a Jupiter 8, a Roland Jupiter 8, and I took that into the studio, and pretty much most of that album was just Jupiter 8 and a movement drum machine, and we did have live drums on a few of the tracks, but it wasn't that's why it sounded so different to the first album, because I didn't physically have all the synths. And this I think I bought a Selena actually as well. Cool. So we had the Selena in the Jupiter 8. But yeah, I didn't have and the Wasp, of course. You know, the Wasp I use that quite a bit. So yeah, I didn't have the
palette,
the palette,
if you will.
Palette. So it was. I found that a little bit difficult actually. The difficult second album. Yeah, it's the difficult second album.
How old were you? Sorry, Sean. How old were you for the second album? Just
about 21, I think.
Goodness me,
20.
It's insane. Isn't it? Talking of palette, what's it like now? Now that we have endless possibilities, you can have any sound you want.
Yeah.
Any moment while you're writing, you can have any sound. Is that good or bad in your opinion?
For me, it's great. I love it, because if there's something in my head and I want to hear it, I can get it really quickly, and that for me is fabulous. I must admit, I miss mucking about a little bit more to try and get these sounds.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Back in the day, you spent ages getting the sound. When you got it, that feeling of euphoria that you actually got there and done it. It's just like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. After all that work, that was a lovely moment, and I don't get those moments so much.
No,
because that's a really interesting observation, actually.
Yeah.
There's also a creativity is sort of bred by restriction, isn't it? Sometimes,
absolutely that, and sometimes, you know, if like guitars and amps, you know, if you've got like an array of amps, there's so many different sounds and tones and stuff that certain amps do brilliantly and other ones don't do so well. And when you're kind of stuck with one, you kind of like you have to make the best
you
of
get
that
the most
amp.
out of what you got. Yeah, definitely.
And so it makes it a little bit harder, but sometimes you'll get something out of it that you probably wouldn't. You know.
I sort of miss it in my early sort of days of writing and recording stuff. I had a drum machine, a synth, and, you know, very little scope. But I dug right into there and worked out how to get every possible ounce of usefulness out of both of them. And then when you listen to stuff from that era, it's all got a cohesive sound because it's the same stuff. And I sort of miss that. And now that you've got endless possibilities, it's sometimes hard to focus in and find a sound.
Absolutely. I think it's probably a good time to mention that you're talking about programming drums back in the day. We were just looking at some of your stuff.
We need to mention this.
Yeah, we were just looking at some stuff in your store cupboard there.
Yeah.
And we found your old Lynn drum.
Yeah, it's a beauty, but it scares the living daylight.
I had no idea you still had this sitting around. Yeah. And the best bit, what does it say on there, Dan?
It says,
very small writing.
Have you remembered to store this pattern on a cassette today?
Cassette today, yeah.
Cassette storage. My first drum machine had cassette storage. In fact, I've still got it. But crazy, man.
So once we're finished, we're going to be switching this on and seeing
for the first time since.
Well,
however,
probably
decades.
30 years. And the reason why I haven't is because it was actually in a shed for a long time, and I think there's maybe a bit of water might have got into it. It might be absolutely fucked, but
fairly good chance of that.
I'm absolutely terrified of turning it on just in case it kills me. So if you're brave enough, then
I'll do it.
Go for it.
Yeah, we got to try.
I can't believe how heavy it is.
It's really heavy. Literally, it's a proper 2-arm lift, this one. How bizarre. And interestingly, on the wall we have a synth-axe, and the brain part of the synth-axe is actually outside the shed.
Just take the picture of that.
Just sit out there.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm so terrified about turning that on, because the amount of rust on the synth-axe inside the brain and on the guitar means that it might be similar on this one. So
there's a good chance it's not in a very good state.
Yeah.
But
so
still,
that's terrifying.
Amazing.
Hell of a thing.
So again, moving from sort of modular work, and you talked about what your creative process was like and how you started writing songs. How's your process for being creative changed musically? How is it different now to how it was back in those days?
It's not that different, to be honest with you. The way I write and the way I work it's obviously, you know, these days I've got a lovely room, a lovely studio, and I've got my computers. Obviously, we didn't really have computers back in the day, so having a computer and be able to and Logic, you know, we didn't have Logic in back in the day, and so having a DAW like Logic, it's just everything's so easy, and they're always coming up with new compressors and new synths, and so it's so easy. Everything's self-contained, and when you save it, it's all saved. Everything's saved, so you can come back in a month's time and then turn it on, and it's exactly the same. All those little things that you take for granted, we just didn't have those.
And that's huge,
days.
I think. And we talked about this. We were reviewing an SSL channel that's just come out, and I was saying, you know, how funny it was back in the day that when I first used an SSL and I heard it had recall, I thought you push a button and your mix would come back, and obviously it doesn't.
Nothing like it.
But then that was only one part of the story, because if you know, this happened a few times when I was first working in studios. If a band comes in and, you know, the labels ask for a tweak on a mix, first of all you've got to recall obviously the the desk. You've got to, get all that side of it. You've then got to recall all your outboard, which if you were lucky, you took a photo or drew a picture of where it was. So you've got to put all that back. You've got to repatch everything. You've then got to get the synths and the samplers repatched into the right inputs, recall everything there. I mean, it was honestly, there would be a pile of floppy disks. There would be notes and photos.
Stressing me out just hearing about
the
it.
whole thing.
I mean, the chances of getting that the same.
You'd never get it the same.
No, impossible.
And one of two things used to happen, I used to find. One, it would never come back, and everyone would really not be happy about that. There was something not quite right, and you never found it. Or it would come back loads better.
Yeah.
and you never really knew what was going to happen. And it was terrifying for everyone involved. Because whereas now you just take it for granted. You click save, you leave the studio, 2 seconds later you come back, you recall it, everything's there.
Although I will say that 9 times out of 10 it does come back. But every now and again, and it's always the mix that's really important for whatever, because that's just it's the single and it's gone. And they need stems for something or other, remixes or
just
whatever.
Talking about this, weren't we?
And then you turn it up and then gone missing. Like, what do you mean it's gone missing? Do a search for it. It's just like, well, it should just be there, And when you've backed it up, obviously you've put it somewhere, and it's, where did I back it up to? And it's just like, so every now and again,
it happens.
My backing up is not brilliant, I have to say.
I've never noticed.
But do you still find yourself sat with a guitar or a piano? I see you've got a beautiful piano in your house. Do you still sit there and just play some chords and have that creative element to your songwriting?
And that's why I love buying guitars and new synths and stuff, because at the moment I pick a new guitar up or a new synth, there's something different about it that I've not heard or played before, and that's straight away I feel inspired. So that's why I've got them coming out my ears, basically.
They're literally,
you certainly have
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Do you know what? That's something I learned from you when me and you first worked together, sort of 20 years ago, whenever it was, and we first wrote some stuff together. That's something I learned from you, is that I was very much someone that worked the way a lot of people I think work these days. I would get an 8-bar loop going. I'd have a groove. I might have some drums. I might have some bass and whatever else. It never occurred to me that the most important bit was the song, and I needed some nice chords and a melody. That bit was secondary, and I would always just see what happened once I got a groove going. Whereas when I started working with you, you were the opposite. You'd have some ideas for the chords and the melody and the song bit, and I learned such a lot from you from that that still permeates through what I do now. In that it's the groove bit is kind of easy. That bit's not hard anymore, is it? It's the song bit's the important bit, because at the end of the day we've only got 12 notes to play with, and we've got to come up with new ideas all the time.
Absolutely. And also it's nailing the melody as well, to make sure that it's the best it can possibly be. That's really important for me. Sometimes I'll do a guide vocal over it, and for some reason I might have just sung something that is that stays, and it's just like, yes, that needs to be there. And then the vocalists will come in and sing it slightly differently, and they'll be like, actually no, that melody you just did there, and it might be one note or a 16th note, that's slightly different, but it makes such a massive difference if it's not nailed.
Do you know what I really noticed that? I really noticed that in when you're rehearsing with Kim's band or in the studio, you will hear something and stop everything, and I wouldn't have even have heard it. It will be an tiny little thing, but it's important.
The devil is in the detail, isn't it? And
Definitely.
And that for me is, I think, because I played pretty much everything on most of the tracks anyway. Not so much these days with the Kim Wilde band, because they obviously they're all fucking amazing musicians. But certainly all the original stuff. So it's kind of like, because I know what all the parts are, when someone's playing slightly different, then I'll know that I can really hear it straight away.
So that brings us on to something interesting. Obviously you're this young man in a studio playing with all this interesting newfangled electronic kit, and then somebody says, right, you need to go on tour now.
God,
I assume you were in the as you are now in the chair of musical director of that. And you've got to be able to translate what you've done in the studio, and like you say, you played all of the instruments and you've got to translate that to a band. How did you manage that?
Do you know what? I think back in these days, obviously we've got Ableton, so you can use stems, so you can use like backing vocals, and you can use all this fast synth stuff and all the sequency parts. You can put those on Ableton, and mix those in with the rest of the live playing, and it sounds perfect like the record, if you want it to. In the old days, literally, we used to take the Fairlight on tour with us and play along to the Fairlight.
That thing didn't like being in a studio. It's not going to like being on a stage.
God knows how we did that.
It's terrifying.
But there was the odd moment where stuff fell over, and where it glitched and whatever.
Well, it still does now, doesn't it? I mean, this is something I say to everyone I ever work with: is that look, we can make it as good as possible and as safe as possible, and you can have as many backup systems as you like, but one day it's going to go wrong. That's the nature of it. It just will. Be ready for that, because it's going to
absolutely
happen. And you're going to be stood in front of 20,000 people going
yeah. And so we did have a couple of moments on some of the early gigs back in the 80s. We did have a couple of moments where stuff fell over, and it was a little bit embarrassing, because especially when you got that moody intro and you start playing all these chords, and before you know it, I remember one of the intro, I think it was Cambodia actually, and it kicks off with these like sort of phased pads, and I started playing it, and I thought, this is sounding nice, and I played the first chord, lovely, played the second chord, it sounded a little bit weird, but I thought, it was all right, played the third chord, and I suddenly realised that there was a sustain that got stuck, and all the chords were merging into each other, and it just finished up with this big massive noise of horrible phasing, and it was just like, oh fuck, so I had to press stop, started again, and it was just not a good look, but yeah, these things happen.
For those that don't know, I used to do the live sound for Kim's gigs for a long, long time. We were doing a show, I think it was in Berlin, the Wilde'S Festival. I don't know if you remember it. It was like, there was something about this particular gig in that we'd done it quite a few times and it was jinxed. There was always something. We once had a monitor engineer have a meltdown. He literally just couldn't do it. So
yeah, sorry about that.
It wasn't Dan. Although Dan did used to do monitors for Kim for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, this particular
we
gig...
go back a long time, don't we? We've got quite a few years.
20 years.
Yeah. 20 years,
more than 20
yeah.
years.
Long time.
But yeah, this particular gig, I was mixing front of house, and we had this intro tape that used to play. You guys would walk on, it's all very moody, and everyone's like, all the crowd's getting all stirred up. And you guys could all hear it in your in-ears. But I wasn't getting it at front of house. So it was silent. And I'm busy on the shout back, shouting to everyone, don't come on, nothing's happening. And you lot walk on looking all moody, and you can hear it in your in-ears, but there's nothing out the front of the house. We can literally hear your footsteps. It's like, oh my god. I mean, luckily it suddenly kicked in just before you started playing the first song, but that was one of those moments.
The worst one, and it has to go down for me as the worst one ever, was Forever Young. Oh man. So
gives me shivers even talking about that.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep this short, but basically, it's a really nice moment because the whole band goes off, and then it's just me playing keys, and Kim comes on, and so I'm playing the pad and Kim's singing the verse.
Sounds better than that.
Whatever the words are, I remember. And it's all nice and easy, but I didn't. It was quite a difficult one to play in the key that it was in. So I said to Steve, our keyboard player, can you just, when you leave the keyboards, because I take over his keyboard, when you leave the keyboard, if you could just transpose it up like 1 or +1 or +2 or whatever it was, so I can play it in a key that I don't have to look at the keyboard, and I can just be looking at Kim and play it without having to look at the keyboard.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
What could possibly go wrong? And so we've done this probably. We played it probably at least 20 or 20
Oh yeah, it was a part of the set for
and
a while.
It was easy.
Yeah, always a good.
So it wasn't even in my periphery, but there's a good minute and a half, 2 minutes before the rest of the band come on to join it. So we kick off with the intro. We have the whole first verse, the whole of the first chorus, and then the rest of the band walk on and play.
Well, do you remember the first thing that happens is Stevie walks on with the guitar and starts playing it like a lead line over the top.
Yeah.
And that was when we first knew there might be an issue. Because that is just controlling the same synth you're playing.
Yeah.
However, that was out of tune.
It was out of tune, but it wasn't a tone.
It wasn't a whole tone.
It was like half a tone, or a quarter of a tone.
An
actually.
unfixable amount.
It was an unfixable amount, and so it wasn't in any key.
No.
So Neil on guitar, he was like side stage, like, trying to work out what key it was, and there wasn't a key to match it. So, and what had happened is we think that that when Steve left, there's something when he changed it over to the transpose, that there must have been something to do with the pitch bend, because the pitch bend, it was kind of like halfway
between keys. Yeah, there's something very weird went on.
But it's never happened before, and it's never happened since.
No.
But it happened that one time.
Well, we've never played it again.
And we never played it again after that.
It's too traumatic.
But when the band started coming in, it was just like...
Well, there was a moment where you
oh my God, this is awful.
You were all on stage.
Duck.
But it was too late to start again, because we'd done like a minute and a half before they...
But literally everybody was trying to find the right key. Everyone ended up playing in a different key. Johnny playing the drums is the only one who doesn't have to worry about it.
Johnny's having a great time.
I'm at front of house and I'm just thinking, if I just find whoever's out of tune, I'll just take them out. So one at a time, I'm pulling all the faders down, and I've suddenly realised, oh, it's everyone. I can't fix this, so I literally just ducked.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
It was horrific. And God knows what Kim was singing to, but bless her. She
and everyone turned their backs to the audience. Apart from poor Kim.
We're all so embarrassed that it was hilarious. But yeah, but live music.
Live music.
Folks.
Yeah,
That's what
it's all
things
about.
happen.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Scary times.
Yeah.
So, given all of this, if you were a wise man, what advice would you give with the vast experience that you've got? What advice would you give to young songwriters, producers, musicians looking to make their way in the world, in the music industry these days? What
I would say, don't overanalyze. Don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes you'll come in the studio and something will happen and it all works and you've come up with a great song and or not. But it's don't try and force it. I think if you try and force stuff, it becomes hard, and the moment it becomes hard work, then it's not enjoyable. So you need to just give yourself a bit of a break. And I wished I'd have done this back in the day. I was very, very hard on myself, and I didn't really enjoy the process. And I think that's so important. I learned that from you, Sean, actually, because I remember you saying that it's the process. It's not actually, once you're there, that isn't the best bit.
No,
it's the journey there.
Yeah, of course, always.
And so you have to enjoy that journey. And if you don't enjoy that, it's not fun.
No, it can be a real slog, can't it? And you don't want it to
man.
feel like that. You want it to be fun.
Yeah, and I think I enjoy the journey so much more now.
Yeah,
and I think that's really important. Is the
Well, do you know what? There was a few projects we did together back in the day. Believe it or not, boys, it's 19 years ago we did the record label.
Mad.
Insane. Where did that time go?
Yeah, I must have been 9.
Well, yeah. Not quite. But
mentally, yes.
yeah. You ain't far off with that one. But also the other stuff we did, all that's to do with the label and the gigs we were organising and the film stuff we did and all of that. It was immense fun. And it didn't always end up panning out how we wanted it to. But when I look back over all the stuff I've done, I'm like, that was so much fun. Yeah. Everything was just a laugh, and maybe that's why it didn't work out so well. But it was a really enjoyable time.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was. You look at. I mean, it was hard at the time because because like you were just saying about Sean, you're often focused on the outcome, and in hindsight, you're able to see that actually the process was just
that was the fun bit.
Was defined, life defined.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Always, yeah.
So enjoy the process. Enjoy the journey.
Great advice.
Yeah,
great advice. Yeah. We should talk a little bit about what Rick's been doing recently.
We should, absolutely, yeah. So, for those that don't know the full story, Ricky Wilde has been writing and producing for his sister Kim Wilde for a long, long time, had loads of success. We've all worked together on various things over the years. Ricky's always written and produced for other people, and not that long ago...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, it's just logic being annoying, but still Still going.
That's a change.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
good.
Keeps going. Yeah. I know,
sorry,
it's scary.
sorry. We just saw a screen and it stopped.
Yeah, does it all the time.
But it's
No idea
working.
why.
It's fine. Yeah, sorry.
Recently, you decided you were going to venture out and do a project of your own with Nina, the German
Nina,
artist.
yeah. But actually, it didn't it panned out like that. But
Yeah.
it wasn't the initial process for me. It was Nina had basically contacted me and said that she was wanting to write for a follow-up album to Synths, her last album.
Yeah.
Which I'd written a couple of tracks on that album with her, and it was a lovely moment process working with her. She's amazing talent, beautiful voice, and just a great girl. And so I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to come up with some more ideas. So I was programming, coming up with ideas, singing melodies and sending them over to her, because by this time she used to live in London but she now lives in Berlin. So I was like sending over the rough demos, and she was like listening to them and coming up with the lyrics and melodies and stuff. So it initially all the songs that I was sending over were for Synths, was for her album, and then right out the blue she contacted me and said, Rick, I think we should do this together. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, your voice, I love your voice on this, it really works, and I just think it really needs to be there. And before we knew it, once in my head I'd sort of got my head around it being the two of us doing it.
Yep.
Because as I said earlier on, I never had aspirations of being an artist, really.
No.
I love production, I love being in the band, and I love everything else with it, but I've never really seen myself as an artist, and as much as I love stage work, it's not really something that I think it's probably a little bit a bit scared of it.
Yeah.
And also I've seen the amount of work that Kim has to do, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to do.
And you're a bit lazy, yeah.
Fair enough. That's very honest.
Yeah, it is.
but the things like, photo sessions, interviews, podcasts, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and Kim loves all that, and she's so good at it, which is brilliant. But it's a part of it that I've never really had. It's never really pushed my buttons, all that kind of side to it. So it wasn't something I was thinking about. And when Nina mentioned it, I thought, do you know what? I'm 61. Why not? Let's give it a go. So I've got nothing to lose. I've never done it before, and I thought, let's give it a go. And you know what? I've enjoyed every second of it, and especially with Nina, because she's such a great girl, and it's such an easy process. It was writing wise, I didn't feel at all pressurized. It was a lovely. The whole process was lovely, and then the album was released, and that did really well. So we were really happy with that.
Charted, which is for something that was done kind of on the down low a bit, in a specific genre to get a chart position and to get the success it's had. That's incredible.
Honestly, we were all absolutely astonished, and so I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of working with her, and the whole thing is amazing. And now that we're in next month actually. Yeah, next month they're releasing a remix version of the album. Scala Hearts is the album.
Amazing.
And and we've got loads of amazing remixes involved as well. So yeah, very exciting. Initial Talk, who I'm absolutely amazed that he's doing something for us. Steve Anderson from Brothers in Rhythm. He's a lovely man. He's a good friend of all of ours. Paul DeCane, but from back in the day, amazing remixer. So we've got Radio Wolf Club. It's just so L'Avenue, and all the mixes are coming in, and it's so lovely to hear other people's take on it.
Listened to a few of them.
Amazing.
It's incredible. Well, the new ones, the latest ones were coming out. I had an idea to put the stems out to the public,
of course,
and see what they come up with, and there's been unbelievable mixes come through it, and so cool. And it's lovely now because they're now in our periphery for any future stuff we're going to be doing with Kim or Nina maybe,
it's
or
a great way to
whoever
make
that
new
we
contacts,
work with.
isn't it?
It's fantastic to know these people can do what they do.
Well, that's a good tip for people out there as well. You know, if you see these things online, if you see a competition, if someone's asking you to send in remixes, get involved, because that's how you get found.
Absolutely, and as I say, if the mix that you've done for the Scarlet Hearts thing isn't used, don't think that it's the end or it's not. That's it. It isn't at all. That's just beginning, because now that we're hearing these mixes and they're sounding so cool, and now we know about you guys and we know what you can do. We're going to be coming back.
That's awesome.
So, Rick, hell of a career behind you. Still, you young man.
Now I know you're taking the piss.
But you're still out there rocking these stages, MD in the band and all of that stuff. You've just had this success with this new album. What's the future got for you?
Well, we're just starting Kim's next album now. So it's Kim is just a never-ending machine. She loves gigging, she loves recording, she loves touring, and she loves the whole process. And thankfully, which is great for me, I've got an artist that's up for it. We're just starting Kimmy's new album, and I'm really excited for that. And we've already got 3 or 4 tracks, I think, maybe 4 or 5 tracks, maybe.
Yeah, some really good ones.
And they're all sounding lovely, and so I'm very excited to record them and get them mastered.
It's going to be exciting. Yeah, can't wait to work on it.
And we got loads of gigs this year as well, haven't we? So,
we have. Yeah, it's a good year this year. Yeah, off to France very soon, and then Holland and Belgium and Denmark, Sweden, all over the place. Australia,
maybe Australia.
Australia's looking highly likely. Yeah.
So there's all these lovely gigs, and in the summer you get the festivals and stuff. So there's always something different, and and the gigs are these days. I don't know whether it's because everyone thinks that it's going to be our last gig for whatever reason, but you get on stage and it's kind of like, you get this feeling that they think it might be your last gig, and so that they got that. It's such a lovely reaction we get these days. It really is lovely. Very
it has
warm.
Definitely gone up a level recently.
It really has.
Yeah. We should talk about gear, because we're sat in your studio, which you've had this a little while now, haven't you? We did the Aliens album. I think we did some of that in here. It's been here a while. So talk us through so you're running Logic on a Mac Mini?
Yeah, Mac Mini,
which is awesome.
64 gigs of RAM in there.
Wow.
It's pretty much
so you need.
It's fully loaded. But I think I'm getting to the stage where, because it's like 5 years old now.
Is it? Wow, it's gone quick.
It's gone so quick. Do you know what? The other day I thought, I'll have a quick look and see what version it is, and couldn't believe it's a 2018
goes quick,
Mac, and it's gone up. Wow, that's 6 years old. So it's probably due an upgrade. But that's what I use. It's not falling over. It's all working beautifully at the moment. So
great.
I'll probably stick with it for until it starts.
Worst thing you could do is upgrade when it's all working.
Yeah. So I'll probably stick with it just for a little while.
Definitely.
But that works lovely. I've got a few outboard synths, so every now and again I'll use those. Yeah,
you got a couple of new ones I've not seen before. They're the Moogs. Mother.
Yeah, I got the Mother 32 and the I've forgotten what it's called now. Oh, the DFAM, and so and the DFAM's great. It's like a little drum machine, but a little synthy drum machine, which is really
interesting.
Cool.
And you've got the Behringer Wasp reissue thing.
Yeah,
what's that like compared to the original?
Nothing like it.
Oh, really?
I thought it was going to be, but
really?
it's like so different. Yeah, it's so different. So,
bizarre.
But, it's another synth.
Do you find yourself still being quite tactile and getting on the knobs and playing with stuff?
I do sometimes, but only when I'm sort of mucking about. And I don't normally when I'm writing. When I'm writing, I'll probably just go straight onto the presets and get the pads happening just to get the basic sounds. It's only when I get into the nitty gritty of the production that's when I kind of get a little bit more hands on. But generally not. But I do sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, I've got a couple of amps, got me Vox amps, and I'll record those. Sometimes I record real amps rather than the virtual amps.
Yeah.
It's most of the time I'm using the synths from within the computer, and it's just for recall. Obviously, it's a lot easier.
Of course. Awesome. You're still rocking the Event 2020 monitors. I remember you getting them.
Yeah.
NS10s from back in the day still. Auto. In fact, we have very similar monitor setups.
It's the NS10s with the speaker cover. You don't see those much. There used to be covers for the...
Well,
I think they got lost or broken.
Originally domestic speakers, which hence why they used to have covers, yeah.
I think we're all on NS10s, aren't we?
Yeah. Still rocking mine.
Yeah.
I use them so much.
Yeah.
I just had a whole episode with the amp from my NS10s blowing up, ordering another one which then didn't work. Yeah. Never to get another one.
You've had a bit of a run of that, haven't you?
I've had a bit of a... I think the last 3 weeks in my studio has been things deciding to not work anymore, which is, causing me to spend money to fix them, which is frustrating. But anyway, it happens now and again. Yeah. So we've made a little list. We do a top 5, as you know, on most episodes, and we're doing Ricky Wilde's top 5 plugins. So... Dan, in your famous way that you normally do, let's start at number 5.
So we're doing it that way or that way?
Well, you do whichever way you want to do it.
We're starting at 5.
We're starting at 5.
In 5.
At number 5, Ricky Wilde has gone for the AMEC mastering compressor.
Yeah.
Which
it's got a very nice sound to it, and I put it over a master the other day, and it sounded lovely.
It's a really nice plugin. Yeah. I use it a lot.
Yeah. Very cool.
In 4. It's weird doing it somewhere else.
Ricky's gone for the Plug and Mix Classic Flanger. The Plug and Mix is it's a whole collection of plugins, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've never seen them
it's
before.
a little suite of plugins, and they sound lovely. They all sound really nice. Very warm and lovely sound. And the flanger in particular, I really like.
What do you use the flanger on?
Sometimes, mainly guitars, I guess. It's lovely on the guitar. Sometimes I'll put it over the whole mix, actually, and it'll sound...
Oh, I like a bit of that, yeah. Just go for a section over the whole mix,
yeah. Just a couple of bars or something. And
nice.
So, yeah, just a little effects, vocals. It's nice on vocals.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
In 3.
Ricky's gone for the Waves One Knob Pumper.
One knob pumper is so easy to, instead of having to get the side chaining thing happening, which can take, it's a little bit aggy sometimes. Sometimes exactly, you just want your synth pad to go, and then all you have to do is put the one knob pumper on there, and there you go.
It's got to be said, I used to use that one. It's a good one for that.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's so easy. It's very nice and quick.
Sorry. In 2.
In 2, Ricky's gone for the God Particle.
God Particle, yeah, I love the God Particle.
It's a very cool plugin.
Yeah, no, it just sounds nice, and I don't know what it does though. I can't really work out what it does. It does compress it a little bit. It saturates it a bit, I guess. It's
Jason Josh's master bus, so it's a model version. I think it goes through a pair of Pultecs. It goes through some master bus compression, and I think there's a bit of stereo width expansion in there. Yeah. And as long as you hit those markers, it comes out sounding
a little bit of limiting in
there.
Yeah,
it's got a limit.
There's something about it that I just like the sound of it.
Yes, nice.
So it's nice to put over a bus, over a drum bus, or a vocal bus even. When you're bouncing out stems, I'll put it over pretty much most of the stems that come out, because it makes them nice and loud. And when you... I don't know. Just recently, I've been printing out quite a lot of stems for this remix album.
Competition, yeah.
And it just adds something to the stems, and so I use it a lot for that as well.
Cool.
And Ricky's special prize,
number 1. Ricky's gone for the Nexus Synth.
The Nexus Synth is I've bought so many expansion packs for it now, and there's one called Hollywood, which has just got these amazing Hans Zimmer type strings, and it's just got... So there's so many beautiful sounds on there, lovely pads, there's some gorgeous drum sounds, lovely bass sounds, and there's... Obviously, it depends on what expansion pack you buy, but I've got so many now, and every time I get one, there's always something on there that blows me away, and I think lovely. So I do use that synth a lot. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we have the other show we do called Is It Shit, where we call out.
Yeah, which cost me a bloody fortune. I try not to watch that anymore.
So do I.
So, in the spirit of that show, what's a shit plugin that you just...
A shit plugin?
Yeah, what's one every now and again you fire it up and go, nah, it's just not working.
It's not working.
Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah, actually. That is a tough one.
Shit one. I can't think of a shit one really. There's almost every plugin that I put in.
Yeah.
There's something about it that I can make whatever it is sound better.
Yeah.
There's always something in there.
Okay.
I can't really think of a shit one.
No.
No, I can't even think of
I mean, we were looking
one.
through some of your arrangers and stuff, weren't we, just before we started? And you actually use quite a lot of the native plugins in Logic, I noticed, you know, and you're very a meticulous producer. We were looking at the tuning that you were doing on the vocals and how you were going through syllable by syllable, you know.
Yeah.
And so I can completely understand that if you were to open something up, you would obviously find something useful or good about it.
Yeah. And some of the stock plugins within Logic they're fabulous.
They're
so
amazing,
good.
yeah.
And the whole I'm not sure what they're called, where you can, it's a bit like Melodyne within Logic, where you can get a vocal and you can tune it and you can see
the pitch correction on it is incredible. Yeah,
is well,
flex
the plugin,
pitch.
The flex pitch.
Yeah, flex pitch is amazing. Yeah.
And that is just fantastic. That's been a game changer for vocals, especially for me. And then once I've got the vocal sounding as good as I can without pitch correction, then or the plug-in pitch correction, then I'll put the plug-in pitch correction over that, and put it on a very subtle setting, so it's but it just pulls it in. So
incredible technique, that just those few cents you were those little bits of vibrato, the trick you were talking about on the end of a vibrato, just to make sure that it hits. Incredible stuff.
So I do spend a lot of time on the vocal to make sure that that's all 100%, that because that's the most important part of it, I think. Really,
nobody goes home humming the drums.
There you go. And especially with a vocalist like Kimmy, whose vocal is so imperative that her vocal is just right up high and proud. You know, and because that's the first thing people want to hear from a Kim Wilde record.
100%.
And her voice is so it's so distinctive, you know, that no one sounds like Kim.
No,
you know, she's the moment you hear her voice, you know it's Kim Wilde.
Definitely.
And so it's you know, it has to be perfect, and so I'm very precious over that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, hardware. Any piece of hardware you've bought thinking, oh, that'll be great, and then just isn't. Well, apart from the Wasp, obviously.
I was going to say, I think I can answer that.
Yeah. Anything else you've been excited to get and it just didn't live up to what you thought it was going to do for you?
Not really, because I don't really use that much hardware. I've got to be honest. Well, no, most of the stuff that I use is
stored under the Lindrum in the back cupboard.
Yeah. I must admit, I'm getting more nervous looking at that Lindrum.
It'll be fine. I should also point out, behind the camera over there's a Synclavier. There's also an Akai ASQ10 sequencer. There's the Roland MC202.
What's that above the door?
That's the MC202 over there. I mean, there's just like bits of
Korg M1.
Yeah, there's a lot of these are just old synths that I've like collected over the years, and some of them work, some of them don't work, some of them we don't know whether they're going to work or not. Some of them might kill you. Well, so you know, we'll see.
We're about to find out.
We'll stand well back and see what happens. But yeah, we have to get that restored and working, man. I can't believe.
Fucking hell, man!
Sat there.
I'm petrified that you're going to do that.
Well, if it bursts into flames, it'll make an interesting video.
Oh my god!
Excellent stuff. Yeah. Well,
cool. Well, I think it's time we wrap things up.
Yeah. What an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
we've known each other all this time, and I've never had the opportunity to have a conversation with you like that. Well, not one I can remember. I'm sure we have.
They've been on tour buses whilst drinking red wine, generally.
Yeah. No, I can honestly say it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for coming over, and it's lovely to be hanging out with you guys again. It's been too long.
It has been too long. Anyway, so there you go. There's another episode of Studio Life. Big thanks to Rick, and we'll be back soon with another episode. So see you later.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So here it is. We're going to fire up the Lindrum that hasn't been switched on in decades.
Oh, here we go. Moment of truth.
Right, flick the switch, and then we'll find out whether...
Am I safe to flick to the... hang on a minute. Am I the one that flicks the switch?
Well, you're
the oldest.
The least to lose at this point, Rick.
Is it not going to blow up this end, though?
Well, we hope not.
We'll find out in a minute.
We think not. Go. Right. That might mean it doesn't work, or it might mean the switch on the back is off. I don't want to touch it because it's metal, so we're going to poke it with a biro. No, that's a big fat nothing.
Oh. Oh well, that's
Bang!
Oh.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Never mind.